Okay, we're live.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I think we might take a few minutes just to wait for more people to join us, and then we'll get started soon. Hi, everyone. Hopefully we've, a lot of people have joined us by now, so I'm hoping that it's time to get started. And for those who are just joining, just want to welcome you all. My name is Nicole, and I'm here with my colleague Diana, and we are going to talk to you a little bit about the rights of immigrant families in New York City public schools. Thank you so much for joining us today. Si hay alguien en el video que prefiere recibir la información en español, tenemos un servicio de interpretación. Está disponible a través del teléfono. Si quieren participar, solamente tienen que llamar a ese número y usar el número PIN abajo. And then I'll just go ahead and say it in English. If there's anybody who's joining us now who would prefer to receive the information in Spanish, we have simultaneous Spanish interpretation. You can just join now by calling the number and dialing the PIN. So today before we get started on talking about the rights of immigrant students and immigrant families in New York City public schools, we're going to provide a little bit of information about just some fast facts of what you need to know about returning to school next week. And then we'll talk about who can enroll in school. We'll talk about the right that immigrant parents have to translation and interpretation, the rights that students have in schools who are learning English. We refer to them as English language learners. The rights of English language learners who have disabilities. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about who you can go to within the Department of Education if you have any questions or concerns about your children's needs. We are from Advocates for Children. Diana and I are our attorneys. Diana, I don't know if you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone.
So Advocates for Children is an independent organization that aims to provide a high quality education, or aims to protect the right to a high quality education for all students living in New York City. We mainly focus on students from low income backgrounds, or students who have other high needs. We offer many services. The first one that I want to highlight is that we have a helpline. It's a free helpline. It's available Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Anybody in New York City can call this helpline with any type of education or school related question. Somebody from our office will return your call, or we'll be able to talk to you in the moment and give you some guidance and tips or resources for how to help you with your question or your problem. We are available to speak to you in your language. We have people who can call you back who speak many languages, and we also have access to phone interpretation, which provides interpretation in many languages. As Diana and I are also attorneys, we and many other attorneys who work for us provide free legal services to families who need legal representation against Department of Education. We have many guides and resources that cover a range of education-related issues and topics. They're available right now on our website, www.advocatesforchildren.org. We offer many workshops and trainings, and right now during the period of remote learning, we're offering many in the form of webinars such as these, and they also cover a range of topics. We have another webinar coming up this week that's all about talking about how to file and write an impartial hearing request if you want to file a complaint against the Department of Education, and we welcome you to attend that. And then finally, we provide a lot of policy advocacy to improve the educational system in the city, and also impact class action litigation, where we sue the Department of Education in federal court. Before we get started, we just want to take a little poll to see who's joining us today. There are 2 short questions. We're curious to know who we're speaking with, if you're a parent, a professional, student, somebody else, and also if you're located in New York City. If so, where within the city? So I'll just give you a few minutes to fill out that poll, and looking forward to seeing who's with us. Okay, so it looks like we have 7% of people with us are parents, 11% are educators, and most of us are professionals. Glad to see who's with us. And so now we just are curious to know, where is everybody in New York City? So it looks like a fair split. There's about 27% each of people who are in the Bronx and Brooklyn, 19% of us are in Manhattan, 15% of us are in Queens, and 12% are other. So during this time, a lot of the, information that we're talking about, rights of immigrant students, there, some changes could be made based on what's happening remotely, but in terms of return to school and other new information that's coming out while everybody is remote and, a lot of things are in flux, everything we're saying is correct now, but it could change. And you should always check our website for up-to-date information. We're always reflecting the newest notice that we receive from the DOE. So that will always have the most accurate information. And we also include other resources there that could be helpful to parents and families. And just a reminder, our website is advocatesforchildren.org. We also, as I mentioned, we've been doing a lot of webinars during the period of remote working, and they're all available. They're all recorded. They're available on our YouTube page. This webinar will be recorded as well. Our slides will also be available. They'll be distributed to everybody who registered later this week, and the recording should be available later this week on our YouTube page as well. I mentioned that there will be a webinar later this week on how to file impartial hearing requests. That will be recorded, available on the YouTube page, but we already have done a number of webinars over the past several months, and they're all available on our YouTube page if you're interested in learning about more information, about special education, early childhood education, regents, and other general basic overview of what's happening during remote learning. So just a little bit of an intro about some basic information about what's happening with return to school. You might already know a lot of this already, but just to make sure everybody knows the most up-to-date information from the Department of Education. Again, all of this might change, and if it does, please check your news, check DOE website, check our website for any updates. But as of what we know right now, return to school will be next week, and all students have the option to choose between either blended learning or fully remote learning. Blended learning will be a combination of students going to school likely 2 to 3 days a week, as well as spending days learning at home, all within the same week. And then fully remote learning is that students have the option to stay learning at home 5 days a week, just as they did during the spring. If a student chooses blended learning, where they go in person to school a few days a week, families can always opt in for their child to do blended learning families can always opt in to go to remote learning at any time they want during the year. So that means if after the first week of school, a family has gone in and is doing blended learning, the students are going to school for a few days, they can always choose right after that first week that they feel more comfortable doing remote only learning. In order to choose fully remote learning, families should go and fill out the survey. The link is here. Again, we're also going to be sending the slides out later this week in email, but you can go to that the first link there to designate your preference that your child should be remote only. If you do choose for your child to be learning remotely, you cannot opt in to do blended learning at any time. You can only opt in at set times during the year. I believe that the first set time will likely be in November. However, schools will reach out to families to let them know when they have the opportunity to opt back into blended learning. For students who are either only remote or for students who are doing blended learning, regardless, all students on the days when they are learning at home still have the option to pick up free meals from school. In order to be eligible, you have to attend a public school, a charter school, or a non-public school that participates in the DOE's free lunch program. They're available for pickup on every school day from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And you should go to the second link on this slide in order to register. It looks like I believe you need to go here to register a specific school site to pick up your meals, and you would go to that same site every time you want to pick up a meal. A little bit more on remote instruction. So for all of the days when students are learning at home, so this includes both students who have chosen the blended learning option, as well as students who are doing remote only. For the days when the students are learning at home, the DOE has promised that there will be live video instruction every single day. The amount of live instruction that a child will receive varies and depends based on the age and grade level of a child. So the DOE did release guidance about the range of times, the range of duration that students will be receiving remote learning. So for students who are younger, in early childhood and lower grades, they will have a shorter range of live instruction every day. And then students who are in high school will get more hours of live instruction every day. So, but remote instruction will be a combination. So for the amount of time during a day when a student is not receiving live instruction, they will be working on assignments independently that their teachers give to them. Live instruction can mean live classes. It can mean live small group or individual group, but it just means real-time interaction with your child's teacher. Schools are supposed to be posting or sending schedules to families before school starts. So this means schedule for students who are doing blended learning. This means schedules to let families know which days of the week your child will be going into school and which days of week they will be remote. And for children who are doing remote only, it will be telling them, as well as for children who are doing blended learning, on the days when they're at home, the schedules will say when your child is getting video classes or live instruction. So the purpose of the DOE sending these schedules out in advance is so that parents are able to plan their work schedule, their family commitments around their child's school schedule. So if families are not receiving these schedules prior to school starting, parents should reach out to schools to be getting these schedules. The DOE has also promised that every single day, teachers will be making themselves available for 20 minutes of daily office hours, just available to be communicating through video or telephone with both students and teachers. So you should be encouraging families you work with to be interacting with and contacting teachers every day, that parents have the right to be speaking to teachers because teachers are available every day for 20 minutes. If you know of a family or a child who still needs an iPad, the DOE is still giving out iPads for loan for students who need them. These iPads are enabled with internet, and the DOE, so you can request one using this link. Right now, the DOE is still prioritizing students who live in temporary housing, students who are in foster care, and students who do not have internet at home. However, everyone is entitled to request an iPad if they need one. Finally, my last slide on remote learning is the DOE is also setting forth options for free childcare for families. This free childcare right now is available for children in grades 3K to 8th grade. And this is an option for childcare on the days when students are learning remotely. So this means that if parents have obligations that don't let them stay at home to take care of their kids and supervise their kids while they're learning remotely, it will be an option for them to go to a specific site to receive childcare. These sites will be provided by community-based organizations and other partners. It won't be school. They will be following all of the health and safety and social distancing protocols. At these sites, children will be engaging in their remote learning schedules, but there will also be other activities like art, recreation, and other age-appropriate and developmental activities. They'll also be getting lunch. If families are interested, they should be filling out this survey right now. Just to let you know, this is not an application for the childcare. It is just a survey of interest. So if families are even remotely interested in having free childcare for their kids when their kids are learning remotely, please encourage them to fill out this survey so that DOE, is aware of how many families are in need of this option.
So we're going to discuss enrollment and who can enroll in school. The information that we're providing is is generally information that we've been providing, but I'm also going to include some of the current, what we're doing now in terms of COVID, because enrollment looks differently when you physically can't go into schools. So between what ages does a child have the right to attend school in New York City? I don't know if anyone wants to put it in the chat, but we can discuss between what ages a child has the right to attend schools. So generally, children have the right to attend school between the ages of, go to the next slide. The ages of 5 to 21. Yeah. Sorry, it seems like our slide went a little further ahead. There we go. So children 5 and 21 have the right to attend public school, and they can stay in school until they graduate or until the year they turn 21, whichever occurs first. Between the ages of 6 and 17, school is mandatory for children to be in school, and the immigration status of the child or the parents does not matter. Children have the right to go to school regardless of their immigration status or their family status. So we just said it before, but we'll repeat it again. Immigration status, does the immigration status of family matter? No, your child has the right to go to school regardless of his or her immigration status or your family's immigration status. No one can ask you about your immigration status. If someone in the school knows, school staff, they must keep it confidential. If a document that the school asks you to fill out requires a social security number, simply leave it blank. And students are entitled to receive all school services, including free lunch, free breakfast, transportation, and educational services, even if they or their family are undocumented. A little bit more about undocumented immigrant families. Federal agents, including ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, are not allowed to enter school except if required by law. The DOE and school staff cannot share information about you or your child except if required by law. You should update the emergency contact information in your child's school to add adults who can pick up your child in your absence. So it's usually the blue card, and provide any relatives or friends who can pick up your child if they are unable to, if you are unable to pick up your child. So where do families go to enroll children in school? So again, this is one of the questions I mentioned before, where we're going to tell you what generally happens pre-COVID and what's happening now. So families generally go to their zone school if the student is between kindergarten and 8th grade, generally. And family welcome centers are where if you have a child who is high school age and needs a new placement for high school. At the present time, because schools are closed, the DOE is responding to enrollment requests through email. So if you go to the DOE school website, schools.nyc.gov, and you click on the enrollment tab, there is enrollment by age, and you can email the Family Welcome Center in your area and proceed to enroll your child or any families you're working with via email. What type of documents are required for enrollment? So it's generally speaking, the DOE requires a proof of residency, like address, and you can provide that through utility bills or from Con Ed or a lease or internet bills, the proof of age of the student, which can be provided through a birth certificate, immunization records, and a transcript from a previous school if it's available. The DOE cannot ask you for information that shows your immigration status. At the Family Welcome Center, interpretation services are available in more than 200 languages. As we mentioned before, Family Welcome Centers are currently closed, but if you send an email, someone should be able to respond in your language. Parents have the right to choose school. You have the right to apply to schools that you choose for your children. There are different timelines and application processes for pre-K, kindergarten, middle school, and high school. You can attend information sessions, and at this moment they're being done virtually, and virtual open houses to get to know programs and decide where to apply. And all schools provide support for students who are learning to speak English. I think we're going to take a brief break now to see if there are any questions that anyone has submitted to the Q&A. So I believe we just got a question about family welcome centers. At the present time, family welcome centers are, the physical locations are closed. And so it's, at this moment, you are able to send an email. What you should do is you should go to the DOE website and click on the enrollment tab, and there will be emails provided where you can send in your request for enrollment, and then you will go back and forth by email to enroll the student. Are there any additional questions? So someone, I think, also asked if they don't have email, how are they contacting the enrollment center? You can also call 311 and ask for the Family Welcome Center and work on enrolling via phone. There may be some challenges in terms of going back and forth with documentation, but we've had, the DOE is working with families to try to get information back and forth, whether it's through video conferencing, because they do require to see proof of address and ID. So there are challenges if you don't have email, but it's generally speaking, the DOE is working with families. And if you continue to have issues with enrollment, you can always feel free to reach out to us at Advocates for Children, to our helpline, and we will work with you.
It seems like we're also getting questions about, just jumping back in slides. Sorry if I know how to do that. So we're getting some questions about this point that DOE and school staff cannot share information about your child except if required by law, and that federal agents, including Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, are not allowed to enter schools except if required by law. That usually means with a judicial order. So if there's some kind of pending case open, a judge would have to grant ICE or the other federal agency access to the school. So they cannot come without a written legal order by like a different federal, as I mentioned, federal judge.
Yeah, and it would be specific to that student. Sorry. Are you, okay, great. So in New York City, and we're gonna have other moments throughout the webinar to stop and ask more questions, but feel free to continue to put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll definitely answer them as we're going along. So in New York City schools, parents have the right to participate in their children's education. In order for parents to participate effectively, they have to be able to communicate. One of the rights that parents have is the right to translation and interpretation so that they can receive information in their language and participate in their child's education. Parents have a right to translation and interpretation no matter what language they speak, even if it's not one of the 9 covered languages. So on the slide, these are the 9 covered DOE languages: Spanish, French, Arabic, Chinese, Bengali, Urdu, Russian, Korean, and Haitian Creole. However, for parents who speak a language other than the 9 covered languages, They do have to make sure to request the service. Parents can access interpretation in other languages over the phone. And again, sometimes in person, depending on availability, when we go back to being in person. If there are any issues with interpretation and translation services, there is a phone number for the DOE for complaints or for queries, and the number is provided here: 718-935-2013 or hello@schools.nyc.gov. So when we're talking about translation and interpretation services and the right to both of those things, translation is generally documents. So we're talking about letters from the DOE, forms, meeting notices, report cards, and special education documents. You have a right to translation of those documents from English to your home language. And when we're speaking about interpretation, we're talking about oral communications. So as a parent, you have the right to have someone who speaks your language provide interpretation at parent-teacher conferences, at IEP meetings, at suspension hearings, at special education hearings, and at any Department of Education office. Parents should never be told to bring their own interpreters. Children should not act as interpreters for their parents, and interpreters should be neutral. And be sure to request an interpreter in advance of a meeting. If you are trying to speak with a teacher, if you request a document that's not in a language that you understand, you should let the school know that you want to receive the document in your home language. And at the beginning of the school year, you want to make sure that the school knows, has a recorded what language you speak, and make sure they have the up-to-date information. So starting this September, the DOE will be responsible for translating all special education documents in the top 9 languages when parents request it. So there is a question about how do parents go about getting documents translation? Do they ask for it in advance? Yes, you should be asking for documents to be translated in advance, or if you receive them in a language that you don't understand, you're requesting for documents to be translated. You will ask the translation from your child's school. Going back to special education documents, you'll ask for it from your child's school. And special education documents include IEPs, evaluations, notices, and 504 plans. Currently, the DOE is also running a pilot program for translating IEPs in districts 9, 24, and 75. So if you have a child in those districts, there is currently a pilot program that is translating IEPs. And you can ask for a translation at your child's school, online at www.schools.nyc.gov/IEP hello, or by phone. And then again, you have a right to attend parent-teacher conferences with interpretation, translation provided by the DOE. If you need an interpreter, please let your child's teacher know before the day of the conference so that they can plan for it. There are generally 4 conferences per school year, usually in September at the beginning of school year, November, March, and then again in May. We often recommend for parents to prepare questions ahead of time, asking how your child is doing academically. Are there places where they're struggling? Are there any things that they can be doing at home? These are different questions that we ask to be prepared, so that way it will be the most meaningful use of your time during the parent-teacher conferences. And we're going to pause again to see if there are any additional questions. I think there was a question about getting documents translated. And so you can let getting documents translated, and if families need to ask for it in advance, it is a good idea to write a letter at the beginning of the school year stating your language preference and requesting that documents be provided in that language for the year. And we would recommend addressing that to the principal. So to be clear, what's starting in September is the translation of special education documents. So there is a right to translation and interpretation of documents generally, but specifically the right to special education documents to be translated in the 9 covered languages is something that's happening in September. So if you have a child that has received special education, you can ask for translation, and it's one of the 9 cover languages. You can ask the school to provide translation of the IEP or the meeting notices or the 504 plan.
I would just add that while it's always been a right to have these special education documents translated for families, in practice that has not always happened. However, the DOE has agreed that they will make a more concerted effort to translate these special education documents in a timely manner, and that they will be starting to hold themselves more accountable to this starting in September. So now we'll talk a little bit of the rights of English language learners. As I mentioned in the very beginning, students who primarily speak a language other than English and require services in school to help them learn English, learn academic English, they're referred to as English language learners. For short, we call them ELLs. So all parents who are parents of students who are learning English, students who are identified as ELLs, have the right to participate in the process of identifying your child as an ELL. It starts as soon as you enroll your child in school. So students who are identified as ELLs must receive support to help them learn English until they are actually able to proficiently read, write, speak, and do all of their classroom work in English. So as soon as you enroll your child in school, the Department of Education will give a parent a home language identification survey to ask what language the child speaks at home. If the child speaks English at home, then the child is not considered an English language learner, and the child does not need extra supports in school to help them learn and do their classes in English. However, if from the home language identification survey, the child's language is something other than English, the Department of Education will then give a test to the child known as the New York State Identification Test for English Language Learners. For short, we call it the NYCTEL. This test is given one time at the time of enrollment after the parent has completed the home language identification survey, and it tests the student's abilities to read, write, speak, and listen in English. Depending on the results of that test, if it seems that the child needs support in order to read, write, speak, and listen in English comfortably without needing any support, they will be considered an English language learner or an ELL. Once a child is considered an ELL, schools you have the right to receive information about services for ELLs. So you will watch an orientation video, and you have the right to receive this orientation video and get information all about the different programs that are available for ELLs to learn English in school. After you have this orientation session and fill out all of and receive all of the information about the programs available for ELLs in school, you should return the parent survey and program selection form. And it will ask you for your preference of what kind of ELL program you want for your child. So to talk a little bit about the ELL programs that are available in New York City Public Schools, there are 3 different types of programs available for children who require academic support to learn English. The first and most common English language learning program is English as a New Language. We refer to it as ENL for short. This is available in all public schools in New York City. The goal of this program is to learn English, and the teacher does not have to speak a language other than English. They just have to be certified to teach English, and they'll speak in English only, and they'll use other supports and scaffolds to facilitate the learning of English. The students in this class can be from many different countries. They can speak many different languages, and English is only used in the classroom. A bilingual program that's available is referred to as TBE, Transitional Bilingual Education. Classes are taught in both English and the student's native language. The goal of this class still is to learn English, but all of the students in the class will be speaking the same language other than English. So for example, there can be a Spanish TBE class, there can be a Chinese TBE class, there can be a Russian TBE class, and other languages as well that are available throughout the city. And in the class, all of the students will speak English and Spanish, or they'll all speak English and Chinese, or all English and Russian, again, depending on whatever language the class is available in. The goal will still be just to learn English, but at first the teacher will use primarily the student's native language to learn English. And then by the end of the program, the goal is that they won't use any of the native language in the class. They'll just be able to use English, and the transition is slow. So throughout the course of the program, the students will be speaking both English and the native language. Another form of bilingual program is dual language. And the goal of this class, rather than just to speak English only, is to have everybody in the class be bilingual in the two languages that are taught in the class. So there could be a Spanish dual language program, there could be a Russian dual language program, there could be a Chinese dual language program, and again, other languages are available throughout the city. So all of the students in this class, again, will speak English and the same common native language. And the teacher who teaches this class will speak both languages, and the goal is at the end of the program, all students in the classes will be bilingual. Half of the students in a dual language class are not necessarily considered ELLs. They're either English only students, or they're students who speak the native language but are no longer, either never were classified as an ELL or are no longer classified as an ELL. So as I mentioned, English as a new language is available in every single public school, and there are TBE and dual language classes available throughout New York City in a variety of different languages. The availability of these classes and languages available are posted on the DOE's website, and parents have the right to select whichever program they want for their child. It does not matter if the program is or is not available at the child's school where you're enrolling. If you want your child to be in a specific bilingual class, your child has the right to transfer to a school within their district that has the class available. In order to do so, you can ask for this transfer at your child's school, or you can ask for it at the Family Welcome Center. So if you are enrolling in a school that only has ENL and does not have the bilingual class that you want your child to be in, do not fret. Your child does not have to be in English as a new language. If you do not want them to be, you can transfer them to a different school that has the program that you want. Again, this is just a repeat of what I already mentioned. You can request the transfer either through your child's current school or by visiting a Family Welcome Center. And if in your child's school there are enough students in the same grade or two consecutive grades who speak the same language, your child's school might create a new bilingual program in that language. Are there any questions? I will look at the chat. So I see a question in the chat that if a parent requests a transitional bilingual program or a dual language program, but the school does not offer it, what are the next steps for the parent? Again, you can request this transfer through your child's current school. You can speak to the principal or the parent coordinator to get the transfer, or you can also go directly to a Family Welcome Center. If in 1 year you are in an ENL class and then you decide for the next year or even midway through the year that you want your child to be transferred to a bilingual program, either a dual language program or a transitional bilingual education program, you can request this transfer at any time because your child always has the right, or you have the right to always select whichever ELL program you want for your child.
Muted. So Nicole spoke a bit about English language learners or multilingual language learners. And so we're going to talk a bit about two tests that English language learners take. The NYC, the New York State Identification Test for English language learners, is a test given to determine if the child will be considered an ELL. The NYC tests the students' English language skills and determines if they're an ELL and entitled to supports to learn English. Students typically take this test within the first 10 days of school. The NYC, which is the New York State English as a Second Language Achievement Test, is given generally during the spring. They take it once a year to determine what type of ELL services they will receive for the next school year. The test is supposed to determine how well the student is learning English. It assesses the listening, speaking, reading, and writing in the students speaking, reading, writing in English. And the student's performance should be a guide to the kind of instruction that should be offered the following year. The NYC generally has 5 levels, with kindergarten as it's to grade 1, and then grade 2 to grade 4, grade 5 to 6, 7 to 8, and then high school 9 to 12. You do not have to pass the NYC in order to graduate high school. Students do have to take an ELL program until they pass the NYC, and language requirements are not provided during NYC administration. So some of the testing accommodations for English language learners, typically time extension, time and a half, in accordance with the best judgment to serve the needs of the student. Principals should consult with the student's classroom teachers to determine, when making these determinations, a separate location during the testing, a third reading of the listening section of the English language arts exam, bilingual dictionaries and or glossaries. Students who are unable to understand math and science tests in English can get versions translated into their home languages. An oral translation of tests for low incidence languages other than the English language arts ELA testing. When tests are not available, they may be translated orally to the student. So there is a meeting for parents of English language learners. School staff familiar with your child's work must meet with you at least once a year to discuss your child's progress in learning English. Parents can request interpretation and translation services for this meeting. School will address your students' language progress and their needs. And this meeting is in addition to a parent-teacher conferences or any other scheduled meetings at your child's school. So we wanted to speak about the rights of English language learners who are struggling in school. If your child is at risk for repeating a grade, the school should tell you at the parent-teacher conference, but no later than February 15th, typically around the time where families receive promotion and doubt letters. These students have a right to receive reading and math help called academic intervention services. These services are designed to help students achieve learning targets in English and mathematics in grades K through 12 and social studies and science in grades 4 through 12. These services include 2 components. There's supplementary instruction supplementing the general curriculum and support services for students. For example, a counselor helping a student. And then there is also summer school, which is offered to students starting in 3rd grade who are at risk for repeating a grade. ELLs with disabilities, the IDEA, the Individual with Disability Education Act, is a law that protects students with disabilities. Schools must give students with disabilities a free education that is appropriate. All students with disabilities have the right to an appropriate education and also to all academic services. And all students with disabilities have the right to receive bilingual special education. And so what is bilingual special education? So bilingual education, special education classrooms are where students are taught English and it's in the student's home language. So we're going to talk a bit about bilingual evaluations, special education classroom, and bilingual related services. Bilingual related services such as bilingual speech language therapy or counseling in the student's home language with paraprofessionals or other supports who speak your home language. For students who qualify, their IEP will recommend bilingual special education services and specify the language of instruction. To be eligible, the student must first sit for bilingual special education evaluation. Then the IEP team determines if the child is eligible for bilingual special education services. If your child already has an IEP and you think your child would benefit from these services, you can request for them during your child's IEP meeting. The evaluations that are bilingual evaluations are performed in both English and in the child's home language. And you have the right to request a bilingual evaluation if your child's home language is not English. All children who are ELLs or multilingual language learners must be evaluated in English and in their home language.
So if you have any questions about anything that we mentioned and you don't feel like you're getting what you need at school, or you want to request any of this, the first person you should always talk to at school if you have a question or a concern is your child's teacher. Your child's teacher works with your child every single day. They know your child the best. And so hopefully, they'll be able to work with you to help you resolve your problem or your question. If you have any type of question relating to translation and interpretation, and you want to get documents in your language, or you want to receive interpretation at meetings and on phone calls, you should speak to the language access coordinator. Right now, with the first week of school being next week, it's a really, really great opportunity to try to get your translation and interpretation requests in at the school. And so hopefully if you make some kind of request now and you make a written request, you'll get all of your documents and letters translated for the whole school year if you make some kind of request right now. And same with interpretation. So you can ask the school's language access coordinator for this stuff. If you don't know who the language access coordinator is, you can speak to the parent coordinator. The parent coordinator might not always have answers to the questions that or might not always have answers to your specific question, but your parent coordinator has contact information for many people who might be able to help you, so they can help put you in touch with others who are able to answer your question. Finally, if at school you try to communicate with all of these people and you still have a question, or you still want to receive an answer to an issue that you're having and none of these people have been able to help you, you should speak to your child's principal or assistant principal. You should always at first try to resolve your problem at school, but if you are unable to resolve your problem at school, there are a number of people that you can contact outside of school, but still within the Department of Education. So, if you've already spoken to a principal and the principal is not able to help you with your concern, you can always contact your borough's or your school's superintendent's office. Every superintendent's office has a family support coordinator or a district family advocate who is available to help parents with their questions or concerns. If they're not able to help you, you can contact the office of your borough. Every borough office also has a director of English language learners who can help with your concerns as they relate to your child's English language needs or your translation and interpretation needs. Finally, the DOE's main office has a Office of Translation and Interpretation. You can call them at one of these phone numbers, or you can email them at hello@schools.nyc if you still have not been able to have your question or concern resolved either at the school level or through the superintendent or borough office. Finally, you can always contact us. We're here to help you. As I mentioned before, we can speak your language. We have interpretation services, and we also have a number of people on our staff who speak a variety of different languages. Please feel free to call our helpline or email our helpline. We're open from Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Somebody will answer your call. However, if you do call outside of these hours, you can leave a message. If you leave a message, somebody from our office will get back to you, and they will try to walk you through how you might be able to resolve your question. Thank you so much for joining us. We're gonna run through the chat and see if there are any final questions quickly. And then before you leave, if you wouldn't mind taking a minute to fill out our survey to let us know what you thought of this, it would really, really help us as we are constantly working to try to improve our webinars.
Just a reminder that this presentation was recorded, so it will be sent out to everyone who participated along with more information. So feel free that you will have this presentation available to review.
Great, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to call our helpline, and we hope you all have a good day and a good start to the school year.
Thank you, everyone.